from our Toronto studios. This is the Muslim News on Muslim Network TV. Assalamu alaikum, I'm Zahra Syed. Our top story for today. Lebanon's health minister says more than 40 rescuers and firefighters have been killed by Israeli fire in 3 days. A total of 97 Lebanese frontline workers have been killed overall since Israel began its war on Gaza last October. 188 frontline workers have been injured. Approximately 1,974 Lebanese civilians have been killed by Israeli strikes, including 127 children. More than 9,350 people have been injured. Lebanon has submitted a formal complaint to the United Nations Security Council. A statement by Lebanon's permanent mission to the UN says Lebanon condemns Israel's aggression against its sovereignty and the incursion of its forces within Lebanese borders. On October 1st, Israel launched a ground operation in southern Lebanon. Israeli military officials say the incursion is meant to establish a security buffer zone that would last several weeks. Lebanon's mission says by crossing the blue line, Israel has breached the Security Council Resolution 1701, which was adopted in August 2006. The purpose of Resolution 1701 is to end hostilities between Hezbollah and Israel, with the Council calling for a permanent ceasefire to be based on the creation of a buffer zone. The complaint notes that Israel has amassed military forces, tanks, and armored vehicles along Lebanon's southern border. The military is targeting civilians, aid workers, and journalists. It is indiscriminately shelling towns and villages with more than 8,570 strikes. Hezbollah says it repelled 6 Israeli infiltration attempts yesterday in southern Lebanon. Israel has shut down the Ibrahimi Mosque in the old West Bank city of Hebron. The closure came yesterday as Israelis celebrated the Jewish New Year, Rosh Hashanah. Head of mosques at the Hebron Endowments Administration, Akram El-Tamimi, says strict military measures were implemented to prevent Palestinians from entering the city. He says he condemns the violation of the mosque's sanctity. Al-Tamimi also says Israeli settlers conducted Talmudic religious rituals, dances, and celebrations inside the mosque. As well, Israeli soldiers have prevented the call to prayer at the Ibrahimi Mosque for the 22nd consecutive morning. The celebration saw an increase in illegal Israeli settler activity in Hebron and at the Ibrahimi Mosque. Since 1994, Israel has divided the mosque. Now, 63% of the mosque area is allocated to Jewish worshippers and 37% to Muslims. The White House has confirmed the death of an American in Lebanon. Kamel Ahmad Jawad was a resident of Dearborn, Michigan, where his funeral will be held on Sunday at the Islamic Center of America. A National Security Council spokesperson has not specified the cause of his death. However, his daughter, Nadine Jawad, says her father was killed while he was trying to save innocent lives in his hometown of Nabatea in eastern Lebanon. Jawad says her father was a U.S. citizen, but that should not make his story more important than others. She stresses that her father's life is one of more than 50,000 lives lost at the hands of Israeli aggression across the Middle East. Former UK Prime Minister Boris Johnson says a listening device was discovered in his bathroom in 2017. Johnson had been a foreign secretary at the time. He made the comments during an interview with The Telegraph. Johnson said Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu was behind the planted device. The Telegraph reports that Israel also was accused around the same time of planting listening devices in the White House. Temple University and Philadelphia police are facing accusations of brutality, as well as an attack on a Muslim student. This is after Zahra Shama reported that her hijab was forcibly removed and that she was held without it for 20 hours after being arrested at a Free Palestine campus demonstration on September 26th. She said this is a violation of her religious rights. Despite explaining the religious significance of the hijab, she says she was not allowed to cover herself and was forced to pose for a mugshot without it. Shama described the encounter as an act of humiliation. Temple University's Department of Public Safety has issued a statement denying the claims of brutality, specifically refuting the accusation that a hijab was forcibly removed. Philadelphia police, however, maintain their current policies do not specifically address the wearing of religious garments during booking. Police clarified Shama was allowed to wear her hijab in common areas, but it had been removed for her booking photograph. Walz promises Muslims an equal role in the Harris administration. Details come after the break. Stay tuned, and we will be right back. Welcome back. Democratic vice presidential nominee Tim Walz is promising Muslim Americans an equal role in the next administration should the Democratic Party win November's presidential elections. This comes as Democrats are scrambling to win back Muslim backing that has eroded over the U.S. support for Israel and its war in Gaza and Lebanon. Walz says he and Democratic presidential candidate Kamala Harris are committed that the White House continue to condemn in all forms anti-Islam and anti-Arab sentiments. He says these are being led by Republican presidential candidate Donald Trump. Walz stresses that his party is committing to Muslims being engaged in their administration and serving side by side. His comments came during an online meeting organized by Muslim American group Engage. The group recently stirred controversy amongst Muslims for endorsing Harris. An Arab American Institute survey shows that Republican presidential candidate Donald Trump is set to gain 46% votes from Arab Americans, while Vice President Kamala Harris is expected to gain 42%. Harris is scrambling to win back the key bloc. This is amid friction over Democrats' support for Israel's war in Gaza, which has killed over 41,000 Palestinians and more than 1,000 Lebanese since last October. In the past, Arab Americans' voter turnout has hovered around 80%. The most recent poll shows a much smaller turnout. 63% are enthusiastic about casting their ballots this cycle, largely due to the Biden administration's support for Israel's war. A representative from the Arab American Institute says that in 30 years of polling Arab American voters, the organization has not witnessed anything like the role Israel's attacks on Palestine and Lebanon are having on voter behavior. The poll has also found that if Harris were to demand an immediate ceasefire, 54% of all Arab Americans sampled would support her. Republican presidential candidate Donald Trump has promised to make Michigan the car capital of the world again. He says he will bring back thousands of jobs lost when General Motors moved more than a dozen factories to Mexico. The former president made similar promises to Rust Belt states before he was elected in 2016. However, there was little action on his claims. Michigan is a key swing state with significant number of Muslim voters. Democratic presidential nominee Kamala Harris held a campaign event with former Republican Congresswoman Liz Cheney and Republican royalty. It was held in the swing state and birthplace of the Republican Party, Wisconsin. Cheney focused her speech on Trump's actions on January 6, 2021, and his refusal to accept the 2020 election results. She said the most conservative of the conservative values is fidelity to the Constitution. Cheney says she has never voted for a Democrat, but this year she is proudly casting her vote for Harris. A Colorado County clerk has been sentenced to 9 years in prison for spearheading a data breach scheme in the 2020 presidential election. District Judge Matthew Barrett issued the order on Thursday, saying that former Mesa County clerk Tina Peters continued to push discredited claims about rigged voting machines. He says Peters did not take her job seriously. A jury has found Peters guilty of 4 felonies after a lengthy criminal trial. She has been cleared of 3 lesser charges. Prosecutors alleged that Peters stole a county employee's security badge to help a man associated with MyPillow CEO Mike Lindell gain access to the county's voter systems. Peters then assisted Lindell's false conspiracies about the validity of the 2020 election results. Lindell at the time and since has promoted false claims that voting machines were manipulated to prevent then-President Donald Trump from winning the election. Peters is a Republican. Sweden's recently appointed Foreign Minister Maria Malmer Stenergard has been forced to flee Parliament Hall. This comes after tomatoes and red onions were thrown at Stenergard on Thursday during a debate about how Sweden should vote on a United Nations referendum about Israel and the West Bank. Guard fled when those in the stands suddenly started shouting and throwing the vegetables. And Sophie Mom, leader of the Riksdag, says pro-Palestinian activists with red-painted hands threw the vegetables at the minister. The Riksdag is the legislature and the supreme decision-making body of the Kingdom of Sweden. The debate was interrupted shortly after Guard answered a question about Palestinians in the Middle East. Those in the audience shouted and accused the foreign minister of supporting genocide. Police have so far arrested 3 people. Tomatoes and red onions were not detected in security checks at the Riksdag. Prime Minister Ulf Kristersson has demanded stricter security measures after the incident. The Blue Mosque in Tabriz, the capital of Iran's East Azerbaijan province, is one of the country's most important historical buildings, famous for its unique blue tiles. Located in a busy part of the city, the mosque remains somewhat hidden from the view. Upon entering through a door that separates the mud brick wall facing the Qibla, visitors are greeted by a large courtyard and the mosque's distinctive walls and domes. The mosque has undergone several restorations over the years. While its walls may not retain their original elegance, the mosque's remaining sections still showcase exquisite craftsmanship. Mina Renkber, an expert from the Ministry of Cultural Heritage, Tourism and Handicrafts, told Anadolu news agency the mosque was built in 1465 by Sultan Jahan Shah for his daughter, Begum Hatun. She said the mosque was severely damaged by an earthquake about 200 years ago. However, much of it was rebuilt, including the dome, which was restored to its original height of 21 meters. Renkber stressed the Blue Mosque advanced Great Seljuk architecture. That's all from our Toronto studios. Thank you for watching Muslim News. We are a community channel dedicated to bringing you stories you can trust. Please like, share, and subscribe to our content. You can also comment to let us know what you think of our coverage. You can donate now by visiting muslimnetwork.tv/donate. For more content, keep watching Muslim Network TV. Assalamu alaikum.